Hi guys, and welcome back to Hilltop Farm. I'm Jay, and welcome to Lesson 2 in Wicca. Start the class. I hope everyone did their homework task in learning the Wiccan read from last week. As I say, print out a copy of that and you can have it as a nice decoration in your home. You can print off another copy and just keep that somewhere safe in a nice little folder, so when we get to the lesson where we start keeping a book of shadows, you will have things there that perhaps, and you don't have to, but things you perhaps might want to put in there. Now, Lesson 2, we're dealing with ethics and laws of magic, and one of the handouts that I'm going to give you, I've printed it out here on a piece of parchment. You can just print it out on a piece of normal paper if you would like. I just think a piece of parchment makes it look nice. I'm not actually going to go through this during this lesson. This is something that you can have a look at and study at home. You don't have to be word perfect on it, just have a read through it and be aware of it. But what it is, it's the principles and belief by the Council of American Witches. It says, in April 1974, the Council of American Witches adopted a set of principles of Wiccan belief. Okay, and there is 13 principles that they've laid down here for, I guess if you're a member of the Council of American Witches, that's what you go by. As a solitary witch, I have chosen to go by the same rules as have the other witches in my family. So this is something that we have adopted and we believe in too, so naturally that's what I'm teaching you. So print that out and have a good read. As I say, again, you can put it on a piece of parchment and have it in the house, or again you can add it to your book of shadows if you so wish, or you might not want to keep a copy of it at all. It's totally and utterly up to you. Alright, so that is that. Now, as I said, Lesson 2 is about ethics and laws of magic. Now, in here I make a lot of references to Christians and making the comparison between Wicca and Christianity. I've done that purely and simply because it really, instead of Christianity, we're talking about the book religions that include Judaism, Islam, there's lots of other things it includes, but to list them all throughout this text will be too much. I've said Christians because I think most people that are taking this lesson probably grew up more in Christian households than in any other book religion households, so that's what I've used. But please, if you are a Christian, don't take this all like a personal attack. I'm making the comparison between Wicca and traditional book religions. As witches, we have our own moral code and our own set of ethics. Our ways are just as high and decent and just as respectable as those of any segment of society. So what are the main historical differences between our moral code and that of Christians? It all seems to revolve around sex and violence. The Christians appear to be petrified of anything to do with sex. They teach that sex is something dirty, sordid, and a thing to be hidden away, something to be ashamed of. And just as a quick side note to that, have you noticed, I know I did as a young child, anything to do with naked bodies or, out of the way body parts was always something to be giggled about behind your hand and sniggered about. And that's purely and simply because of ingrained teachings that are in your head. And when you're brought up in a household that comes from, even if you're not a strict Christian household, you just come from that background, or come from a Jewish background or a Muslim background, even if no one actually says it to you, it's instilled in here by watching behaviours of people around you. So even if you're not a practicing, you don't practice a book religion, if you're brought up around that, you probably know what I mean, because it's just instilled in you. That's how it is. And we're suggesting that that is wrong. But anyway, I shall go on, you'll understand. Often, they can't even cope with nudity. They are ashamed of their bodies the gods gave them. On the other hand, their actions suggest they see nothing wrong with violence. In the past centuries, they have murdered millions of innocent people for daring to hold religious views different from their own. During the Middle Ages, thousands of innocent people, including witches, were hanged or burnt by their Christian oppressors. And you see this a lot in modern society. People who are practicing of one of the book religions, if you were to turn round and say the word boob, for example, in front of them, they would be mortified. Absolutely mortified. How disgusting. But then they would sit down and watch a film like Die Hard or something where everyone's shooting everyone up. No problem. Don't bat an eyelid, that's okay. And when you think about it, movies and TV reflects that very principle. Very, if there's any nudity in it, it's got to be after a certain time, and it's very controversial, and if there are gay people in it doing gay scenes, that can be controversial too, and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, what are we talking about? We're talking about love, or reproduction even. But you can show anything violent any time of the day. You've only got to watch the news to see violence. You don't see nudity and sex in the news. So, it's everywhere. That idea and principle is everywhere in our society. We do not hate Christians, though we oppose bigotry wherever we may find it. We know that all paths lead to the centre, so we have no desire to seek converts, nor do we need to resort to violence or lies. As witches, we look at life differently, remembering our great law, and it harm none, do as you will. Another important difference is our attitude to nature. Christians believe they've been granted dominance over the beasts and the earth and the fish of the sea. Pagans hold all life to be sacred and regard the human species to be nature's caretakers, responsible for her well-being. Witches are aware of the cycles of nature and observe them as festivals throughout the changing year. We see the magic in nature, the magic of balance and harmony. We are not scared by sex or nudity. To us, sexual union is a sacrament to the gods. As a nature religion, all acts of creation are sacred. Sexual union can bring forth new life. This is as sacred to us as the new life which arises in the springtime and which we celebrate at our Sabbath. This does not mean that our rituals are orgies, or we have to be naked to do rituals. You often hear reference in movies and this kind of thing about witches and witchcraft and pagans, and they get together in clearings in the woods and dance naked around the fire under the moonlight, and if that's what works for you and that's what you want to do, I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. But that's not for everyone. That's not what this is about. That would make a lot of people feel very uncomfortable. I wouldn't be comfortable about that. I'm not going into the middle of the forest in the middle of the night and getting naked and dancing around a fire and doing all that. It's outside my comfort zone, and this belief of mine, this wanting to be at one with nature, be part of nature, is not something that should ever make me step outside my comfort zone. And so that's something that I'm just not prepared to do. Just on a quick side note, if you've ever seen the movie Practical Magic, in fact, if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to see it. Whoever wrote that, they either did a lot of research or they've had some experience with Wicca, because there's a lot of stuff in there that's actually fact and part of what we do. But of course it's all been made for Hollywood, so there's still a certain element of wiggling the nose and things happening in that. But yes, they make reference to, you know, dancing naked under the moon in that. But if you watch it, you will see it's done in a comedic way. It's not something to be taken seriously. So, you know, if you're starting this path and you're considering this, and but there are aspects of that kind of thing, and you think, well, you know, that's just not me. You know, I'm just not comfortable doing that. Well, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. Anyone who criticizes you for making that stance, they're actually stepping outside the laws of Wicca, because it's not their place to tell you what to do or to judge you for what you do. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, you're allowed to do what you want to do. The last sentence of that, in fact, you should not be asked or do anything with which you feel uncomfortable. Very, very important. Craft manners. Not what you call laws as such, but, you know, there are certain things we do in polite society when, you know, when we're greeting people or being invited to their house or invited to dinner. There are certain things you do and say, and, you know, certain standards of behaviour. It's the same within the Wiccan faith. When you meet other Wiccans, there are 4 basic rules, but we just call them manners, that you should follow. Number 1, blessed be is a greeting that we use by Wiccan. So if you meet someone who you know is Wiccan, or you write to them, or you don't have to say hello, you don't have to say goodbye. We use the term blessed be. So if someone says that to you, or writes that, it's a greeting, or it's a polite way of signing off. Number 2, and this is getting back to what we just talked about a bit, never meddle with another's free will. And that's what I was just saying. You're responsible for your path. No one else is, and no one else is responsible for yours. So that is not acceptable when someone does do that. Now, the last 2, I've actually encountered problems with this myself in the past. Never handle the ritual tools of another without permission. My advice to you is you keep your tools somewhere private. When it comes to creating an altar, which will be a lesson in itself, there are times for having an altar, places for having an altar, and there are rules about that altar. And as I say, we'll cover that in the lesson when we get to it. But at the end of the day, it's your sacred space. It's up to you who goes within it, who touches it. And that goes right down to, you know, your girlfriend comes over for coffee, she brings her 3-year-old. If she's the sort of person to have an unruly 3-year-old that she lets do whatever it likes, well, that's her business. But this is your home and your altar. you do not let the 3-year-old touch anything on it. And you make it clear to that 3-year-old and you stop them. And you tell them off if they do. And if the girlfriend doesn't like it, well, she's not much of a girlfriend. But that's the sort of thing I mean. You have to protect your sacred things. Now 4, never give out another witch's name, address or phone number, or discuss their beliefs in front of another without their permission. This all stems back from the Middle Ages when witches were burnt at the stake. It was very important for witches to keep their identity a secret and keep that hidden. Not just in the Middle Ages, but that's the more recent times that we've had persecution and what have you. Now I'm sure there were many other times in history where the identity of witches had to be kept private. But obviously the burning times were obviously amongst the worst. I personally like to keep a low profile to a certain extent. 1, I don't want to be ridiculed. And 2, you never know what's going to happen in the future. You never know if we as witches are going to be forced underground again, and if all and sundry know who you are, well, it's a bit difficult, isn't it? So anyway, I just and I think you'll find that's a lot of witches. I think that's why a lot of them are very secretive about what they do and who they are, just because traditionally we've had to be that way. So anyway, what is magic? Magic is finding your connection to the earth and all that is natural, alive and moving in the universe. It binds all that exists together. Magic is a living balance with the flow of life and knowing that you are a vital force within that flow. Magic is everywhere, in the trees, rain, stars and in the sea. It is the spark that quickens the seed to rise from the soil. Magic is laughter, joy, wonder and truth of the world around us. It is the subtle enchantment that reminds us not to waste a single moment of this gift that we call life. Magic is not greed or power or presence. It is real. It exists and it works. Magic is the mystery that flies in the secret soul of the world. It is the essence of creation. What we imagine, we have the power to create. Magic is within you. With it, you can create your dreams, heal your world, love your life, and find the peace that lives in every human heart. The laws of magic are not legislative laws, but like those of physical or musical harmony, and are actually fairly practical observations that have been accumulated over thousands of years. Karmic law. The law of karma can be understood very simply as the spiritual equivalent of Newton's law of motion for the physical universe. That to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Remember that from your physics lessons at school? Sometimes the law of karma is only half understood, particularly in relation to destiny. Someone may think helplessly, whatever is happening to me now is because of my past actions, so there is nothing I can do about it. But if the past has created the present can also create the future. Instead of being a slave to one's destiny, the understanding of the law of karma allows one to actively participate in making one's own destiny. The key to the law of karma is not to simply understand the theory, but to become concerned at removing the burden of past negative actions that I am carrying, and to break the habit of repeating such actions. Just on a side note, please bear with me. There's a very proud chicken out there who's just laid an egg, and the record's stuck in the groove, so if you're wondering what that noise is, that's what it is. Karma begins in the mind as thoughts, as the seeds of action. Thoughts, like action, spread in waves which create or influence the atmosphere around you. The law of karma ensures that those waves will come back to you. Karma philosophy allows you to take control of your own destiny. When you realize you are responsible for your own life, you can determine the quality of your actions. Meditation unlocks the inner powers through which clarity, power, and peace of mind can be attained. Avoid blaming others, and you won't have to wait for happiness. Although we sometimes blame circumstance for our fate, ultimately we have made the choice. Opportunities will continue to come, so make the right choice. Sitting around wishing that things were different won't make them so. Create your fortune with good actions. Forgiveness is the most powerful of virtues. It provides instant healing and release from pain. Flexibility will allow you to make the most of the present and the future. Opportunities are there to be discovered. Quality of thought has to be cultivated. Ultimately, it will lead to action and bear fruit. That's the lessons for this week. This week's assignment. Okay? Now, I said in the introduction that a lot of this lesson is you learning and studying and teaching yourself. I'm merely giving you the groundwork, as it were, answering your questions, giving you any advice, and steering you in the right direction. Because there's so much to cover, it is daunting. And as I've said to you in previous videos, you have to start with the basics. You have to learn this groundwork, and it seems boring and mediocre, and in some ways it is, but you need this foundation work before you start building the good stuff, the stuff that I know you're all dying to get into. Okay, so for this week's lesson, you have to research different methods, techniques, and styles of meditation. Now, what I mean by that is there's all different ways to do it. There's Eastern ways. You know, they go into, you know, feng shui and you know, it might be Eastern music and the things that Eastern cultures do to attain meditation. It could be some way of like a shaman type thing. They're you know, more about sitting on a hilltop and you know, watching, like taking in nature, and I think you might want to do some sort of meditation that you can do in your bedroom. They're all different types and techniques and ways of doing it. So you need to find out what technique works best for you, and go with your gut instinct. You will find you will be drawn to something. You will need things to assist you, perhaps, in your meditation. This could be fragrances, whether you burn an incense, whether you use an essential oil in an oil burner, or you might use an essential oil, you know, that you rub into your forehead or into your wrists or something like that. I'm going to obviously cover essential oils and incenses scented candles, all this sort of thing in other lessons, so I'm not going to go into that right now. All I will tell you at this stage is don't make the mistake of going and finding essential oils and looking for the one that says on the bottle relaxation, this kind of thing. I say I will cover that when it comes to the lesson, but what I want you to do is if your relaxation, if your meditation technique is going to involve something that's a fragrance or something like that, I need you to then smell the different fragrances and you pick one that you find relaxing. I don't care what it says on the top. I don't care whether it says invigorating, healing, sensual. I don't care what it is. If you find it relaxing, that's what I'm interested in. So, but as I say, you might not have any of these other things involved in your meditation technique. You are to research it, find one that you're drawn to, one that suits you. Once you've done that, you then have to make time every day to practice it. You need to make time every day to be shut away on your own from all distractions, and you call it your me time. If you live in a busy household with lots of children running around or whatever, you find a time of day, whether they be all at school or wait till they've all gone to bed, whatever, you find a time that's me time, where you go somewhere. It can be your bedroom, it can be your back garden, it can be the bathroom, in the bath, it doesn't matter where it is, but you're to remove all distractions. So that includes children, partners, pets, all distractions. And if you are having trouble, you might finally get the kids off to bed and then you want to soak in a bath or go in the bedroom for a period of time and your partner doesn't quite get it, you just tell them it's me time because I deserve it. So, as with all other lessons, this lesson can be printed out. The link is in the description down below for the printout of the handout of Lesson 2, which is there. We have the Principles of Belief from the American Council of Witches. That is a printout. Also, down in the link in the description below, there is a link so you can print that out. So there's 2 links for those particular items. There will also be a link that takes you to the playlist, which is of all the Wiccan lessons, and it will start with the introduction and play them through. So that link will also be down in the description below. Now also down below is a link to our affiliate with a company called the Book Depository. The Book Depository is a company in the UK, much like Amazon, although they just do books. And I have always found them to be cheaper than Amazon. They do shipping, free shipping worldwide, whereas Amazon tends to only do it in the country from which you buy the product from. But this is free shipping worldwide. They have good customer service. They're extremely prompt and fast in their delivery. We're very happy with them, and they've kindly given our channel an affiliation with them, so that if you want to buy any book, it doesn't have to be a Wiccan book, it can be any book whatsoever. You click on that link in the description below and you go into their website through us, then they will give us a few dollars whenever you make a purchase, and that just helps us, with our channel. So if you decide that you want to get a particular book on meditation, for example, and there are hundreds out there, but if you want to get a book on meditation, go in the description below, click on the link to the book depository and have a look at the books the book depository has on meditation. There could be one there for you. That is the end of today's lesson, or this week's lesson I should say. Next week things start to get more exciting next week, because next week I am going to be covering what we Wiccans call the Wheel of the Year. And the Wheel of the Year takes in a very brief outline of the 8 festivals that we follow. And the festivals are one of the fun things about being Wiccan, and I love the festivals. So, and I'm looking forward to bringing you that one. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, you better subscribe, and you better hit the bell icon as well next to the subscribe button, and that way you'll get notified every time another lesson gets released. Now, if you're only interested in the Wiccan lessons, and you'll get notified whenever we put out videos on ducks or gardening or chickens, or you don't have to watch those, that's fine. Just wait for the weekly Wiccan lesson to come out. I think that's about it. So dare I say to all you budding young Wiccans out there, or could be old Wiccans, but you budding Wiccans out there, blessed be. And that's all this week from Hilltop Farm. Until next time, see ya!